welcome to my third instalment of Illustrator Ghost Stories. I hope that you're well. I hope that you're keeping sane and happy during lockdown. I do have a pandemic related story for you this week, but it is a pandemic that happened nearly 400 years ago, so hopefully it's not too triggering for any of you. I hope you've enjoyed my new title credits that I've got going on this week, and the theme tune that I've got as well. It's quite exciting. It's exciting for me. It feels very professional. But anyway, enough of that. I'll get on with the story now. So this week I'm telling the story of the plague ghost of Eyam Dell. So Eyam is a little village in Derbyshire, and this story primarily takes place in a cottage between Eyam and Stony Middleton. So usually in these videos, if you've seen them before, I might tell you the story about the life of a person and then tell you about the ghost story afterwards. But we're going to mix it up a little bit this week, and I'm going to start with the tales of the sightings of the ghost. So in this cottage, it is said at night that sometimes you will meet a woman at your bedside. It's not a friendly visit, and she has been known to terrify people by appearing at night and pulling their bedclothes off them, leaving them frozen in fear and frozen from the cold because they're just too scared to pick the bedclothes back up again. Unfortunately, it's not just the residents of the cottage that have met this apparition either. She's been seen in a range of places throughout the Dell. And one famous sighting story is from a chap called Tom Cockeye, who, after a night drinking at the Ball Inn sometime in the early 1800s, it's said that he was bragging and boasting while at the inn that he ain't afraid of no ghost. And if any of you have ever seen a single horror movie in your life, I'm sure you know that that's the best way to guarantee pretty much that you're going to meet one. And old Tom did. So after a few beers, he went to go home, and he encountered this terrifying woman on his way out of the pub, and she grabbed him with her icy cold hands, at which point he fainted, and she carried him through the Dell, which in my mind looks like that scary scene in The Haunting of Bly Manor, if you've seen it, where the ghost drags someone around. It's not a spoiler if you haven't, it's just that a ghost drags someone around, but it's terrifying, and I imagine that it was like that. So the ghost dragged Tom, carried him off down the Dell. He fainted and then was discovered unconscious the next morning down the bottom. The ghost is said to be wearing the same thing by everyone that has seen her, which is a mod cap, which is this like nightcap that I've drawn here, a nightgown, and a pair of shoes with shiny buckles. She's been seen running through Eyam Dell and even appearing in other cottages. And it's said that, you know, even a fantastic lock and key won't keep her out, because in a puff of smoke she will appear through a door, and has been known to even punch and pinch terrified residents as they sleep in their beds. So what we really want to know about this terrifying woman that seems to have plagued all the people of Eyam in different places over different times is, who is she? And that's something that they have traced back to what they believe is something from, well, they haven't traced it back because they don't know, but they've theorised that it's something to do with Eyam during the plague in 1665. So it's a huge famous part of Eyam's history, and it's what the village is well known for. And that's that during the plague of 1665, Eyam and the villagers within sacrificed themselves to look after the neighbouring villagers around them. So the story goes that the plague arrived in Eyam from London in a parcel of clothes that were sent to the tailor George Vickers, and within 1 month, sadly, 23 villagers had died of the plague, which is in a village of a couple of hundred people. That's you know, it's a fair amount. It's quite a considerable amount. It was enough for the villagers to know that they needed to do something about it and come together. And that is where the rector, Reverend Mompenson, I think you pronounce it, put it to the village that they should seal themselves off and not let anyone leave in order to stop the plague spreading to the villagers around them. But of course, by doing this and not leaving, by remaining in Eyam where the plague was rife, it's almost like the villagers were signing their own death warrants, that the likelihood of them catching the plague and of them dying for it was very high if they did this. But regardless of that, the villagers decided that's what they will do. So they sealed themselves off, and the walls of the village were guarded to prevent anyone from leaving. But it is told that one woman actually escaped, and she escaped to the neighbouring Tideswell. But once she got there, she was actually recognised as someone from Eyam, and the villagers in Tideswell pelted her with eggs, fruit and stones and forced her to return to Eyam, where it is thought that she met her demise from the plague like so many others. And the theory goes that this is the ghost of the woman that haunts people in Eyam Dell, that appears at bedsides and runs through the dell, is the ghost of this woman who was forced to sacrifice herself on a much less voluntary basis than maybe some others who'd agreed to stay in Eyam had done so. Now, if that was me, I'm pretty sure I'd be haunting the folk in Tideswell who'd thrown stones and fruit at me to make me go back. But that's just if it was me. But it's thought that this is who the ghost belongs to, and it's unsurprising that with so much death in such a small village, there are quite a lot of ghost stories attached to Eyam and a lot that relate to the plague. So within 30 months, there were 267 deaths in Eyam from the plague, which accounts to about 2/3 of the population. So, it decimated the village. It was a huge amount. And as I've said, there are some ghost stories attached to that alongside this one. And one actually pertains to the Reverend Monpenson, who we know it as being the person who put it to the village that they should cut themselves off. And I believe that he survived the plague. I've not seen that he didn't, but I could be wrong on that. But his wife sadly didn't. On another note, strangely, it was said that he sent his 2 children away, which feels slightly hypocritical. But I'm not trying to open a can of worms here. I'm just trying to tell you guys a ghost story. So the Reverend's wife sadly died, and it is said that her spirit can be seen walking the churchyard, where it will pause by 8th century Celtic cross, and then begin its roaming again. And another story pertains to the ghost of a blue lady who is seen tending the graves at the private cemetery of the Hancock family in Riley, who were another family who sadly died from the plague. And by Montpenson's Well, which, that name's come up again. I assume it's named after the Reverend. I might be wrong again. It might be a strong name in Eyam, who knows. But by Montpenson's Well, which for context is a part of the village where villagers would get supplies from the outside world. Obviously that had to be done very carefully to make sure that the plague wasn't being spread to anybody that came to drop off supplies. So they would drop money for the supplies in wells of vinegar, in small vats of vinegar, and they would drop their coins in, and the supplies would be left with them so that the vinegar would cleanse the coins of any bacteria, because they didn't have contactless cards in those days, obviously. So by Montpenson's Well, it said that there's a ghost of a small boy who was seen watching and waiting. Now I'm putting my background music back on here because we've got to the end of the stories, and we'll come to the end of the video. I've just got a bit more colouring in to do here of my background on my Plague Ghost of Eyam Dell. I hope you've enjoyed it. As always, please do drop me a note down in the bottom to let me know what you've thought, to let me know of any ghost stories you want me to cover. And you can find out a little bit more information down there as well about how you can support me and the project and you can find links to my social media and things like that if you want to go and have a look at some more of my artworks. My Instagram name and everything is down there. But thank you so much for coming with me and listening to this story. I hope it wasn't too scarring to listen to a pandemic-based story. But as I've said, it is quite an old one, and it is an interesting and rich history that we've got these stories to tell from, which is what now is going to be at some point anyway, isn't it? We're all just part of history all the time. So yeah, thank you so much for joining me and watching the video. If you have enjoyed it, as I've said, let me know about it, post something, give us a like, subscribe for your next one, and please do as well share the video with your friends so that we can get more people viewing them. So brilliant, thank you so much for coming, and have a wonderful weekend, and I'll see you in 2 weeks' time for the next instalment of my Illustrated Ghost Stories. Thank you, bye.